Hey guys, my name is Layla Williams. I'm your instructor for Philosophy 1013-996, Introduction to Philosophy. This is an asynchronous online course, and this is a little welcome video. So it's part welcome, like who am I, and it's part how am I as a student successful in this class. So like off the bat, something you should know about me is that I love philosophy. I'm passionate about philosophy. I think I have the best job in the world. I get to read about, think about, talk about, and write about my favorite topics. And I get to teach it. I enjoy teaching. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. And so I hope like you guys can see that in this course design that I care very deeply about this aspect of my job. I want to give you a story to kind of like demonstrate that. When I was an undergraduate, I coached youth soccer, anywhere from kids ages 5 to 18. And I took really seriously, part of one of the demands was that every kid played, at least half the game. I was like, why would I like tell a kid who's not very good, like, hey, you don't get to play because you're not very good? Like, how are they supposed to get better? That doesn't make sense. So, soccer is challenging. You don't always start good at it, and so the only way to get better is to do it. So, like, why wouldn't I play that kid? But a lot of kids in youth soccer and youth sports generally are signed up by their parents, and they may not want to be there at all. And it may be that the challenge of it actually makes them not want to do it. But here's the thing: if you don't try and learn enough about it to figure out if it's the case that you don't like it because it's hard, okay, that's one way of going about stuff versus it's hard and you don't like it, right? That's two different sort of reasons why you may not want to do something. If you don't want to do something because it's hard, who cares? If you don't want to do something because you don't like it, that's a little bit different. But the only way, I figured out, the only way to really bring kids who didn't want to be there along on the journey of learning how to play soccer and like figuring out like, oh, this is actually something I like, or, I gave it a good shot. I actually did my best and I just didn't like it. The only way to get kids to that point was to just like be as passionate as I am about soccer with them. Right? I love soccer. It is, I think, the best sport in the world. Sir Bobby Robinson says that of all the unimportant things, soccer is the most important, and that is absolutely true, at least to me. I played soccer since I was like 3 or 4 years old. I played it in college. I've been a Newcastle fan for like most of my life, and so like we're right now when I'm recording this, it looks like we're gonna finish in the top 5 of the Premier League and go into Champions League soccer. That's amazing, and I'm so excited about that. And so what I realized is I can do the same thing with those kids. Like I can just like constantly be just passionate. Like the fact that we get to be out here and playing soccer together is like a great joy. And if I could just just give a little bit of that passion to those kids, then even if they ended up not liking soccer, they'd still remember playing soccer fondly. And I was right. Most of my players really enjoyed playing soccer and would get upset when they couldn't come back to play for me. Not that I'm great or amazing at soccer or coaching or anything in particular. It was really just like, oh, if I screw up, my coach is just going to say, hey, this is what you need to do instead, and not yell at me or something like that, right? So my passion for soccer became at least something that made this thing that maybe they didn't enjoy a little bit better. And so here's why I'm telling you that story. I want philosophy to be for you what soccer was for those kids, right? I want my passion for philosophy, for teaching, for thinking about these things, and for being challenged and being uncertain. I want my passion for those things, the joy that I get doing them, to somehow make this class more enjoyable for you. Bring that to you guys. So, like, maybe you leave here and you're like, I still just have no idea what's going on with philosophy. Or, it's just not for me. If that's the case, that's fine. But I still want you to look back at this class and think, well, I learned something. And I got to do something with somebody who cared very deeply for it. And it wasn't just perfunctory for them. And I hope that you guys recognize that this is not just like I'm checking boxes, right? That I care very deeply for this topic, for this profession, for this discipline, for this course, and for you guys in this course. And what I want you guys to do is, at the very least, enjoy being part of this process. So, do I think all of you guys are going to leave this course philosophers? No. I think asynchronous online is a terrible way to do philosophy, but we offer it, and so somebody has to do it. Do I think that you guys can leave recognizing yourselves as philosophers and recognizing the value of philosophy to yourselves? Yes, I do. I think if I do nothing else, if we meet none of the other student learning objectives, which I do think we're going to meet, but if we don't, at the very least, you have that. So that's the first thing that I want you guys to recognize, that it's not always going to be fun, and it's not always going to be easy. Oftentimes it'll be challenging. Philosophy can be challenging, but nonetheless, you guys are going to be with somebody who cares very deeply for this and wants you to somehow benefit from that care and concern. So how exactly are you successful in this course? Well, it goes back to the basics. Being successful in philosophy, there's only maybe one difference from being successful in any other discipline. First, you're gonna have to communicate with me. If we were in person, I would be able to tell very quickly, all right, this is not working, we're gonna have to change it up. Or, all right, last class was a stinker, so this one we're gonna have to kind of go back and redo that, but in a different way. Cannot do that asynchronously. I cannot look at your guys' faces and go, oh, they have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. I'm not in your rooms right now watching you guys. So you guys are gonna have to communicate with me. You have 4 ways to do that. You can email me. You have student support hours. You have an anonymous discussion board that'll be open all semester. And we can also meet by appointment. 4 ways to communicate with me. And do so. Don't understand something, come talk to me. Struggling to navigate success in college, come talk to me. Anything about this course and anything about college, you can come talk to me. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to help you find it. And this goes for like, hey, I came across a concept in philosophy. Can you help me understand it? So it doesn't have to just be like related to the topics in this course. If it's about philosophy, you can come and ask me. If you're running into trouble like in your personal lives that is keeping you from being successful in this course, the sooner you can communicate with that to me, the more likely we are to come to some sort of solution. So communicate with me when you want to, when you need to, when you're having issues. I can't always tell. The only way that I know if you're struggling or not is by your grades. And you may be having a struggle and doing just fine. So you need to communicate with me. Second thing you need to do is readings. You need to do the readings or listen to the podcast or whatever it is that we're engaging with that week. I design my assignments to be very difficult to complete if you're just skimming. So you need to do the reading, and I'm going to make a video about how to read. But you need to do the readings. It just will make all your assignments easier and more enriching. Your assignments, team assignments, those are not optional. You have to do them because philosophy is done best in a group. The trade-off for that is that you don't have to do like those really boring discussion posts. Instead, you get to meet with people you meet with all the time. You know them, you trust them, you get to build a rapport with them and talk about philosophy with them. So you need to do your team assignments, your concept checks, your pre-readings, and you have a final project. The weeks that you guys have final project components due, I try to like limit the amount of like the difficulty of those other assignments, but that's why you have so few pre-reading assignments, but they're there and you should do them. They're supposed to help guide you through new and unfamiliar topics. So you need to do the assignments, and that means keeping up. We do 1 module every week, except for the first week we do 2 modules because the university does not like us. I think is like what it comes down to. They want a getting started module and they want a module 1. I don't know. It makes more sense for me to put them together, but they didn't like that, so I had to split them. That's why you have 2 due this week. But after that, it goes down to once a week with the team assignment due every week except for Thanksgiving week. So that's the pacing of this course, 1 module a week. I think it's doable. I've read the readings, I've looked at the assignments, I've designed them so that they shouldn't take you more time than you would be spending in an actual in-person class. Because if we were in person, the majority of your work would be done in class anyways. So that's the pacing. Communicate, do your readings, keep up with the assignments. You're gonna, the philosophy is challenging. I've said that. It occasionally can make us uncomfortable because we're bumping up against intuitions and assumptions that we've been taught not to question. And sometimes that's for good reason, and sometimes it's not for good reasons. And so occasionally we're gonna run up against concepts that are just really foreign to us. That makes us uncomfortable. And so the challenge here is that you guys should feel comfortable being uncertain and uncomfortable. It's okay to be like, I don't know right here, right? When you're challenged, your instinct is to lash out. But in philosophy, when you're challenged, your instinct should be to figure out, okay, why did they think I'm wrong, right? So I'm going to ask you to challenge your assumptions and your intuitions and the things you take to be true, not because I think you're wrong, but because I think that when it comes to the way that we view the world and the criteria by which we're judging the world and understanding it, that those things matter. And just because we're used to them and because like it's what we were taught, that doesn't mean that it's true or the best way to go about this. If it turns out that it is, good for us, but we should be able to explain why that's the case. And then sometimes it turns out that it's just like differences in the way that you engage with the world and were brought up. And that's okay too, but we have to recognize that. We can't just be like, well, that's different from what I do, and so I don't like it. That's not a good way to go about life, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to ask you to be uncomfortable sometimes, and that's okay. It's also okay to admit that you don't know something. That's fine too. Well, this seems right to me and I don't know why. Okay, well, that's something we can work with rather than you just being like, you're wrong and I'm not going to explain why. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. In fact, if you're doing philosophy and you're not uncomfortable, you're probably not doing it well. All the time I'm uncomfortable with the sort of ideas that I'm engaging with and how they make me think I'm wrong or right or something like that. It's fine. The flip side of that is if you encounter an idea and you're like, I love this. This is great. I'm on board 100%. You should be suspicious. Our brains trick us. We like to feel good. And so when it feels good, we stick with it, even if it isn't necessarily the best way to go about doing it. Our thinking, right? So if you're uncomfortable, you're probably doing philosophy right. If you're too comfortable, let's put on the brakes and let's figure out what's going on. Basically what I'm saying is be epistemically or cognitively humble, to have some humility here. None of us are experts in what we're going to be engaging, except for me. Technically, I'm supposed to be an expert. I don't know if I am, but we get to do this together. We get to be uncomfortable together. We get to challenge each other. We get to demand better of ourselves and each other. That's a phenomenal process. I'm excited to go through this with you guys and to be a part of this course. This is the first time I've ever taught asynchronously. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. It's nice to meet you guys, and I think we're going to have a really fun semester.